gonna be a little something more. I've got a plan in mind, a special thing in store. The light bulb inside my head says, get out and play, 'cause you never feel this way. It's my lucky day, it's my lucky day. It's my lucky day, my lucky day. Don't need a pot of gold, a rabbit's foot or to be told. It's my lucky day, it's my lucky day.
Hello, friends. Happy Tuesday. I am so glad to be here. I'm so glad you are here. How was your Tuesday, Ben? It was a really good day here. I had the best day with my kids. I mean, I had a work day, but then I left work at lunchtime to take my middle kid, who's just turned 18, to physical therapy. And then I took her back to my office to hang out for the afternoon. I mean, she just kind of did her own thing while I was doing my thing. And it was just so nice to have her there. And then I gave her a driving lesson. She's working on getting her driver's license. And then I was hanging out with my 20-year-old just now. I had to kick him out so I could do this live stream. But he is the coolest kid. He just got a job as a lineman. We sent him to lineman school last summer. And he was telling me that he's in charge of a crew. And they're all, people who are significantly older than he is. But he was telling me today, he's like, I was totally in charge, and I was in charge of the ground hands and the flaggers and the police officer who was there. And he's like, it's so weird being in charge. So that's what's going on in my world. I would love to know, my friends. I would love to know, what can you celebrate today? What's going well in your life? Why was today a great day for you, or what today was great? I would love to know. If you'd pop a comment in the chat, let me know that you're here. Really excited to chat about our topic today. Because what we're going to talk about today is one of the things that I hear all the time from people. I hear really two big concerns. I hear this concern from folks that maybe they don't know how to do it right, that journaling is something that should be done right, whatever that means. And the other thing, we'll talk about that another day, but the other thing I hear all the time is this worry that, what if someone reads our journal? What would that do? What would it mean? Can I be honest in my journal if I'm afraid someone is going to read it? What would that look like? And so what I wanted to do today is, first of all, assure you, if you are worried about this, you are not alone. It is a super common concern that I hear from people seriously all the time. Hi, Tanya. So glad you are here. Thanks for coming. Really happy to see you, Tanya. So yeah, this whole idea of somebody reading our journal. So I want to preface this whole conversation by admitting I have a lot of privilege here. I had the privilege of growing up in a home where I was afforded all the privacy a girl could want. I kept a journal. I think maybe my family knew I kept a journal, but I never made a big deal about it, and no one else made a big deal about it. And I don't remember having to hide my journal from anybody. And I'm very, very grateful for that. So I will admit that first and foremost. I will also admit that I could take my journal, this is my journal, and leave it open on the kitchen counter here at home, and everyone in my house will walk right by it without giving it a second glance. My husband, because he figures he'll hear everything anyways, and my children, because they can't imagine I'm that interesting. And I know that for a fact, because again, earlier I was talking to my son, and he was like, oh, you're live streaming. Can I be on your live stream? And I said, sure, I'll interview you. And I will ask you questions like, would you ever read my journal? Would you ever read my journal? And he said, no. I was like, you wouldn't? He's like, I don't think you're that interesting. So, so I will admit I have huge privilege there, and I recognize that not everybody lives in a place or has relationships where you are afforded that privacy and respect. And if you are somebody who is in that situation, or you are somebody who has had someone else read your journal without your permission, I will first of all just extend um, my deepest empathy, because that sucks. It sucks really hard to have our privacy violated like that. And I do know some people who have been in this situation and actually did stop journaling. But what I want to do today is really give you, I'm not going to give necessarily strategies so much as what to do about it, but really offer you a perspective, some new perspectives. Um, so let's talk first of all about why we might be worried that somebody reads our journal. Um, what comes to mind? And if you have any reasons you'd love to share, if you go ahead and put those in the chat, I'd love to hear what you're thinking as we go along. Um, like fear of judgment, right? What will somebody say or think about me if they read what I've written? Maybe people are, maybe you're upset that uh, I don't have words today. My words are all trippy. Do you ever have that happen to you? Yeah, so maybe you're afraid you'll hurt somebody's feelings if they don't like what you wrote about them, maybe. Or maybe it's something else altogether. It's usually fear. Um, and it's stronger for some people than other people. So, people, for example, who keep a work journal, right? If you kept a journal where at the end of your workday, you took 10 minutes and reflected on the day and how it went and what you could do better tomorrow, you might feel differently about somebody reading that journal than you would if it's the journal you use only when you're really upset, when you have big feelings and just need to get it all out. That sometimes context makes a difference. Um, yeah, Tanya says, I love this. I hope someday my kids and grandkids read mine when I'm gone. Like, what was grandma thinking when she lived on a boat for 8 years? Yeah, I'd want to know if you were ever seasick, grandma, or mom, what did you do on a boat with all that time on the water? Like, I don't know. I just think, I don't know. I don't have sea legs. So that leads us perfectly into the first perspective I want to share, which is the legacy journal, I'll call it. And this is exactly, Tanya, what you were just talking about, which is um, leaving a journal behind for somebody else. Oh, and seasick a lot. Ooh, yeah, better you than me, my friend. I would not have tolerated that well, I think. Right. So I want you to imagine having a journal that your grandma or your treasured aunt or your favorite uncle or someone you were really close to, um, if they were no longer here and they left you a journal, how would you read that? Would you read it with an eye of judgment, or would you read it with curiosity? Would you look at it and imagine what you would learn about them from reading this? Imagine the stories you would hear. Imagine how close you could feel to them, right? I always say I would give my eye teeth for just even a few pages that either of my grandmothers had written that really showed what their lives were like. Both of my grandmothers passed a long time ago, and I didn't really know them. Um, and I imagine that I could have learned so much from them if I had truly known what their lives were like. Um, right. So, those kind of legacy journals that, when we're lucky enough to get them, I don't know of anyone who ever reads it with an air of judgment. It's always curiosity and gratitude and connection. Just imagine the connection that you could forge with someone who's no longer here, or someone after we're no longer here, just through writing and sharing our words. The next perspective I wanted to share is really this idea of our journals as snapshots in time. Um, when I write, I always write the date on my journal, so I always know when it was that I was having that thought. And I think it's really interesting how our journals can really serve as that marker in time of where we are and what is happening in our lives. Um, think if you journal today. Think about the last time you journaled, whenever that was. Did you journal the same that day that you did the day before or the time before that? Probably not, because we are a little different every day, and our journal writing is a little different every day because we are a little different. I mean, days when I show up to my journaling and I'm well rested are probably going to be different than the days when I wake up tired and with extreme time anxiety. I get this really weird time anxiety in the mornings where I wake up and I think about all of the things I have to do and I get really overwhelmed with it. And feel like I have to rush and really have to slow myself down. And I think it's really interesting to see how my journaling is different on those days. Um, Oh, and this is a beautiful comment I wanted to share. You'd be curious. I love reading books, and every time I do, I feel as if I have the opportunity to speak to the author one on one. I'm the student, they're the teacher. To have a journal from a family member would be fantastic. Yeah, wouldn't that be amazing? Um, and in fact, it's the best gift you could leave behind to others that come along the way. Yeah, and thanks so much. I love how you put that. Yeah, it can be a really beautiful gift. So when I think about my journal, I think about my journal as the story of my life that I'm writing in real time in my own hand. And it's the story of how I grew, how and where I struggled, what I learned, how I overcame. It's the story of who I'm close to and how I nurtured those relationships. It's the story of um, it's the story of me, right? And think about think about your life as a story. Is every moment is every moment exciting? I hope not, because we all deserve lots of time in our lives that are just calm and good. And you know, I think in if we take really this bigger perspective and can use our journaling to cover our whole lives and not just maybe our big feelings, that it might shape our perspective when it comes to somebody else's journal or somebody else reading our journals. And of course, we never ever want to read somebody's journal without permission because that's, really a crummy thing to do to anybody. It's definitely a violation of trust. But really thinking about our journal as a snapshot in time. I think it'd be amazing for somebody to be able to look at my journals from a few years ago and then my journals now and see how I grew. I think it'd be really cool. And I think the person reading it with permission would get a really cool sense of who I was. I don't know. I just think that's really neat. Um, yeah, I think that's super important is to remember they're a snapshot in time. It's also important, I think, to really think through why we are journaling, right? Are you journaling because you think you should? Or are you journaling because you have these big, big feelings and you don't know what to do with them? And I'll tell you, that is how I started journaling, actually, because I always say I was an angsty teenager having a really hard day and none of my friends could come to the phone. But what's the best way to put it? I had big feelings and I didn't know what to do with them. They were in my body, and the only thing I could do was get them out of my body through writing them down. And I'm sure if I were to find those journals, I don't even know if I have them somewhere. I might have thrown them away a long time ago, right? I'm sure they were full of all kinds of teenage angst. The people I was upset about and the terrible injustices that were done to me, right? Those kind of things. So sometimes, if that's what our journals are for, and there is nothing wrong with having a journal to take care of your big feelings, um, I would put forth not every journal entry needs to be saved for posterity. Um, Somebody asked me today on LinkedIn, do you have to keep your journals? And how long do you keep them for? And my short answer is you don't have to do anything. You are the boss of your journal. The journal is not the boss of you. There are some times when I read my journals and I write, and just the act of writing is enough. There are some books I didn't even keep because I just needed to get the words out and send them on their way. I know people who they don't even do their journaling in a bound book. They just use loose paper. And that way, when they're done, they can just send it on their way. Um, you don't have to keep anything. Sometimes just getting it out is enough. Um, so, what kind of a journal did you want to keep? Are you keeping kind of a historical record journal? And I used to do a lot of this. This is probably why nobody in my family would dare read my journals because I used to start I used to be an evening journaler, and I used to really describe what my life is like from the moment I get up to the moment I go to bed. Like my whole life was painstakingly detailed in these journals. So there was a lot of mundane in them. Um, Something like that, I can totally see being really interesting a long, long time from now. I can't imagine that those kind of journals I was worried about somebody reading. Likewise, if you are journaling primarily to set goals and track your progress to goals, maybe that's one that it doesn't, that's not so precious to you. I use the word precious a lot with journaling, like don't make it so precious. Um, I think about that when I think of what you write in. I mean, this is my new journal. I just started it a couple of days ago. It was $7.42 at Walmart. It is nothing fancy. And I always say to people who are looking to find the perfect journal or the best journal so they can start journaling, um, and this happens all the time. I'll start journaling when I find the perfect journal, and then they find that perfect journal for them, and then they're afraid to use it because it's so lovely. They don't want to ruin it, right? So I always say, don't make it so precious. Um, Somehow this idea that everything we put in a journal has to be super, super important. It doesn't. Some days I write just because it's my habit of writing. I'm a huge believer in um, showing up every day because it builds the habit and it makes me available for when I need the answers to come or when the answers are ready to come. Um, Yes. So, are you keeping a journal so you can be more focused and productive? Are you, if you're somebody who is like super, super concerned about somebody reading your journal, um, really think about um, I put it like this, like children, right? When you're kids, or you were a kid or you have kids, what do kids tend to do when when there's something they shouldn't touch and you make a big deal about it? Don't read my book. This is my journal. I don't want anyone to read my journal, right? Like if you were in my house, that would be an open invitation to reading, right? So sometimes the answer, sometimes is just don't make it a big deal, and it might not be a big deal to others. Again, I recognize some people have situations where they don't have that privacy or that trust in that respect. So things like keeping your diary, or not your diary, your journal out of sight, keeping it locked up if you need to, using a password protected app. or a password protected document on your computer. Those can be good choices for folks who are really looking for a strategy. Not keeping your journal at home, keeping it in a neutral place. Maybe it's your workplace, maybe it's your car. Right, and really thinking about where that journal itself is going to live. Um, but then I also encourage you to think of the big perspective. Um, why are you why are you journaling? I journal because it helps me be the best version of me. It helps me to really think through what I need. It helps me to think about what I want. It helps me to really strengthen my relationships, which was an unexpected surprise to discover that. And that comes about in lots of different ways. It comes with me asking myself every morning, who will I connect with today? It's one of my goals to make sure I connect with somebody that I love or like every day. So being really planful and mindful, my journal helps me do that. It helps me when I have trouble with people. Like, I don't, just kind of as a general rule, write about other people in my journal, mostly because my journal is mine and I'm the heroine of my story. And I don't really want to make somebody else the main character. So when I do write about other people, it's usually with a lens of gratitude and positivity, or I use it in a problem solving mode. Let's say my husband and I have an argument about something, right? I can either stay there in the heat of the moment and keep yelling, or I can excuse myself, take some space, and work things out in my journal. And when I do, when I pause and I really am able to get some space and some perspective, it's easier to identify what happened. It's easier for me to identify why my feelings are hurt or whatever is going on. You know, what's going on with my feelings? What feelings do I have? It's easier for me to be able to identify what role I played in it and if there's something I can do to fix the situation. And if I can take some space, come to my journal, work it through, and then be able to go back to my husband and apologize and repair that relationship, it really doesn't matter. It really shouldn't matter what is in my journal because what matters is I'm using it so my relationships can be better and stronger. And so I think that is kind of the crux of what I wanted to share today, my friends. I want you to have a journal practice if you want one, because it's such an important tool. It can be so valuable in helping us access um, our thoughts, our feelings, process our lives, right? All of those things you've heard me talk about ad nauseum. But journaling only is really effective when we're telling the truth and when we're honest with ourselves. And I know that it can be super hard and it can be super scary. And I know that there is that worry, what will people think of me? Well, I'm going to tell you what I would think if I had had the privilege of reading a journal that somebody I loved left me. I would think, wow, you tried, you lived, you loved, you learned so much that I can see here on the page that you struggled, but you kept going. And what's more, you kept showing up for yourself. That's the story I want to leave. That is the story that I'm writing every single day. Again, not every page is exciting. Not every page has a wonderful discovery. But by showing up for myself, I'm making myself available when those answers are ready. And I joke all the time that my poor children are going to inherit mountains of journals. I go through about 4 of these a year. It's a lot. There'll be tons of them. And I imagine my children will do something kind of like this. Great. We have to figure out what to do with all of Mom's journals. Ugh, what are we going to do with these? Boring, trash. Boring, trash, trash, trash. Ooh, huh. I'm going to keep this one. Trash, trash. Yeah, I'm going to keep this one too. And I imagine they will each tuck a volume or two, maybe three if they really like me, away, just so they can have a piece of me. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it helped give some perspective and help you think a different way. Um, I hope that you have a I hope that you have a situation where you have the safety and the freedom and respect um, that you can really come to your journal without fear. Yeah, Lauren, this is great. So the key is to the key is to have so many that no one cares. Yeah, seriously, bore them with the mundane, right? Because let's be real, how much stuff in our lives are really the stuff that's going to be earth shattering, right? Probably not very much. I mean, here's the thing. I'm looking through, and this is just a few days worth of journaling. So thrilled to have nowhere to be today. At least not until I drop my daughter off to work at work. The poor girl has worked a double shift twice this week and another late night at Q. That's a new restaurant she's working at, and she's exhausted. It'll be good for her to finish at the morning restaurant. It's rainy today, super gloomy. It's foggy even, but it's supposed to be 67 exclamation point. It's so weird our weather these days. Fortunately, tomorrow, the other day when I have nothing on the agenda, looks to be at least partly sunny. I spend a whole lot of time talking about the weather because sunshine is super important to me. That'll be nice. But I'll use today to take a breather, to chip away at some projects, figure out what's next for my journaling business, and make some more headway on these classes I'm taking. If I can get through the last couple of modules, do one more coaching call, and do this one other thing, then I can, be done. Yeah, boring, so boring until it's not, right? So I don't know. I don't know if this was helpful. I don't know if this gave you any answers, but really think about the perspective. What are you afraid of? And are you keeping that from moving forward on something that'll help you? And that's how I'll leave you, my friend. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much. Oh, wait, this comment I totally missed. A snapshot in time. I have a book that his son had published from his father's journals and letters. It's amazing. His father was a World War II vet. Yeah, I have a friend who inherited a whole trunk of his father's letters from World War II. And he actually makes the circuit telling the story of his father's life. It's amazing. So amazing. Right. So really think about, oh, Tanya had to run. Yeah, really think about why you're journaling and how you can use it to show up for yourself. As always, my friends, I am here if you have any questions. You know where to find me on LinkedIn, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so, so much for being here, and I will see you next time.